of President Trump's supporters here.
Greatest movement in the history of our country. I'm fighting for you, and I love doing it with everything that I have. And I will never, ever stop. We are one people, one family, and one glorious nation under God. We will make America great again.
Welcome to Team Trump Online.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Team Trump Online. I'm Corey Lewandowski, Senior Advisor of President Trump's re-election campaign. With me tonight, two good friends and proud members of the law enforcement community. First, Chief Poirier. He's the chief of the Barnstead Police Department, a graduate of the 82nd class of what we call the Police Standards and Training Council here in New Hampshire, commonly referred to as the New Hampshire Police Academy. Also with me is Lieutenant Paul Callahan of the Stratford County Sheriff's Department. Thank you, gentlemen, for both being with us tonight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening.
In recent weeks, Joe Biden and the radical Democrats have abandoned the proud men and women who keep our communities safe, those that serve on the thin blue line. Joe Biden has clearly stated that he would absolutely redirect funding away from police. Let me do this. Let me play a clip for you, and then I want to get your reaction to what he said, and I want you to tell me what that means to the men and women who work in your department. Let's roll the clip.
Surplus military equipment for law enforcement. They don't need that. The last thing you need is an up-armored Humvee coming into a neighborhood. It's like the military invading. They don't know anybody. They become the enemy. They're supposed to be protecting these people. So my generic point is that...
Do we agree that we can redirect some of the funding?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, so Chief, tell us what it means to your department to potentially have funding redirected away from men and women who are serving every day and giving to, I think, our domestic terrorists. What would that mean for your department and overall your community?
It's going to cripple our capabilities. Removing funding. Biden's talking about the 1033, the military surplus program, which we are part of, just like thousands of other agencies around the United States. That program provides ballistic armored vehicles to police agencies who use them for SWAT operations. That's like saying, when he says, you know, we don't need that. Well, we do need that. That's like saying a person on oxygen doesn't need an oxygen tank. A firefighter doesn't need a fire-resistant suit. These are tools that we receive through this program at no cost to the taxpayers. And I can tell you through my own experience that citizens are happy to see us roll up in these vehicles when there's an active shooter situation, when there's a hostage situation. We are rolling up. Those are pieces of equipment that we need not only to protect us, but to protect our citizens. And just defunding that or taking that away from us would really put us and the citizens in a bad situation.
Lieutenant Callahan, you know, here in New Hampshire, we're a small community. We've got a Seacoast Emergency Response Team, which is made up of a law enforcement officers from various communities who utilize these resources and train with them. The Stratford County Sheriff's Department, I'm sure, has a collaborative effort with other police departments in the community so that we can train together and use this equipment properly. Tell us what it would mean if we stopped having access to these types of equipment and what that could potentially mean in very serious situations. Please.
Yeah, sure. When you take a look at the ballistic equipment that officers have in their cruisers, now we're trained now for over at least the last 10 years that if there's an active shooter, especially in a school, first officer rolls up. We don't wait for the SWAT team to show up. We have those ballistic equipments in the training to go into these buildings or into, in this case, into a school and go right after the active shooter to limit the, obviously to limit the shooter and to keep the students and faculty safe. Now, we're part of the Sheriff's Department as part of the Stratford County response team, and we do have a armored vehicle. And if there's a situation like a hostage situation where it's not an active shooter, you want that vehicle there so you protect the officers and protect the community members, so you can obviously protect the community and work with the municipal that you're in to keep the community safe. Now that was all jumbled up. I feel like Biden on that one.
Well, it's interesting, LT, because unfortunately here in New Hampshire, we've had our share of officers killed in the line of duty. I remember when I was going through the academy, Michael Briggs was shot and killed by a dirtbag by the name of Michael Sticks Addison. And I remember walking in that funeral procession through the streets of Manchester. We had a police officer killed in the northern part of the state after he conducted a traffic stop with someone he knew. And then if you remember, we had the chief on the seacoast who was serving a warrant just before he had retired, who was also killed in the line of duty. So, in the last 11 years, for a small state like that, to have officers killed in the line of duty is really almost unheard of. And so you guys do this every day. You stand on the thin blue line every day. You protect the people of New Hampshire from the evils that are out there. Let me just run through what Joe Biden has said, because he spelled out his commitment to defund the police in his newly released Senseless manifesto with Bernie Sanders. Biden and Bernie Sanders called for eliminating qualified immunity, a protection the Supreme Court has upheld. Chief Poirier, let me start with you. Tell me what qualified immunity is and what happens if police officers no longer have that.
Qualified immunity is protection of the police agencies, towns, communities, and the police officer themselves. Should they get involved in an incident and a person is hurt or killed. It happens, accidents occur, and if this is taken away from police officers, we're going to see a mass exodus of law enforcement agencies around the country. Not only first line supervisors, but you're going to have chiefs retiring as well. We're already starting to see that because of the vicarious liability. The police chiefs may not be on the scene, but they're the ones in charge of the department and are going to get sued as well. You're going to have officers that are close to retirement. You're going to have veterans officers who have working knowledge of the agency. They're just going to retire. They're going to leave, and it's going to leave us with a very small, experienced police forces. Additionally, we already have a hard time recruiting new officers. The candidate pool is very small. We like to hire very experienced people who have knowledge, or people that are actually educated. We want them in this profession. We want the best of the best. And those people aren't going to be joining us, aren't going to be joining these police forces anymore because they're afraid of getting sued. And it's a very unfortunate thing right now.
Thanks. Hey, Lieutenant, I'm going to direct my next question to you. So in the past few days, violent left-wing anarchists have been wreaking havoc on the city of Portland. Joe Biden referred to these anarchists as peaceful protesters. These peaceful protesters are using lasers to target police officers' eyes, shooting ball bearings with slingshots, using pellet guns and air rifles, launching fireworks at the officers, and barricading police inside a federal courthouse. I want to play a quick clip for you, Lieutenant, and then I'd like to get your reaction. Let's roll the clip.
because I really did hurt my neck, man. This is
So, Lieutenant, let me ask you a question. How many more police officers in the city of Portland need to be assaulted, abused by the radical left before the American people stand up and say enough is enough?
It should be now. I mean, he should have done it a long time ago. I can't believe that he's calling these folks peaceful protesters. Now, I think it just shows that he's out of touch with reality, and he is in touch with the left of the Democratic Party.
Well, let me ask you, Lieutenant, I'm going to stay with you. How has the recent demoralization of law enforcement by Joe Biden and the left negatively impacted the morale in your particular department? You know, I have to think the men and women who go in to serve their communities expect to be supported by elected officials and leaders across the country. And these attacks, have you seen an impact in your particular department at the sheriff's office of these recent demoralization of the police department?
You know, there's talk about it, but, you know, in New Hampshire, there's still a lot of support for the police. But if you look at some of the anecdotal evidence in New York City, you can see that the lines of retirements, you can see the fact that they're not willing to take risks on their criminal, you know, on their criminal prevention tactics. So they're more laying back, and the consequence is you've seen an increase in violent crime.
Chief, how about you? Have you seen your office talk about this or heard them talk about this, how they continue on a national scale to demoralize this great institution of law enforcement? Are your officers at all concerned about it?
Sure. I mean, we're constant professionals, and the officers see it. We see the news media. They're always showing the negative side. But the officers are really taking it in good stride. We know that Trump is backing us, backing law enforcement, and you know, there's a lot of hope there, and we see a brighter future.
Thank you both. We're going to take a short commercial break and be right back with more Team Trump Online. Stay tuned.
Seattle's pledged to defund its police department by 50%, even including a proposal to remove 911 dispatchers from police control.
Joe Biden said he's absolutely on board with defunding the police. Listen closely.
Yes, absolutely.
Hello, you've reached 911. I'm sorry that there is no one here to answer your emergency call, but leave a message and we'll get back to you as soon as we can.
Crime will rise significantly.
Welcome back. I'm Corey Lewandowski, and I'm joined by Chief of the Barnstead Police Department, Paul Poirier, and Lieutenant Paul Callahan of the Stratford County Sheriff's Office. There could be no clearer contrast between President Donald Trump and Joe Biden around the support of law enforcement. While Joe Biden shamelessly abandons and scapegoats brave men and women in blue, President Trump stands proudly alongside them. Proof of this came last week when the National Association of Police Organizations endorsed President Trump's re-election campaign. Chief Poirier, the NAPO previously endorsed the Obama-Biden ticket in both 2008 and in 2012. Why do you think that they refused to endorse Joe Biden in this election?
I think it's pretty clear that Joe Biden and the other Democrats have not backed law enforcement. They have not stepped up to speak about protecting law enforcement jobs. In fact, they're speaking about defunding law enforcement. So why are we going to back? Why are we going to support him and his run when he's he's not supporting us. So I think that is really the reason, one of the reasons why the police are supporting Trump this time around.
Hey, thank you. Earlier this week, we saw a direct example of President Trump's steadfast support when he held an event on Operation Legend about combating violent crime in American cities. During the event, President Trump announced a surge of law enforcement in cities plagued with violent crime. Let's watch the announcement.
Under Operation Legend, we will also soon send federal law enforcement to other cities that need help. Other cities need help. They need it badly. They should call. They should want it. They're too proud or they're too political to do that. One of them is Albuquerque, New Mexico, where last fall, 55-year-old Jackie Vigil was murdered as she was getting into her car to go to the gym. We're joined today by her husband, Sam, and her sons, Raul and Kevin, both New Mexico State police officers. Would you please stand? Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Thank you. Great-looking family. Thank you very much. To Sam, Raul, and Kevin, we're moved beyond words by your presence here today. We thank you very much for being here. It's a great honor to meet you.
Lieutenant Callahan, how critical is federal support in these distressed communities in tackling crime and keeping the peace?
It's critically important. Get the work that's done in Kansas City since that operation was rolled out. They've made over 200 arrests, and it's using standard crime-fighting strategies that have been around for decades. In New Hampshire, we have a great working cooperative relationship with federal authorities. State, local, and federal authorities work together in drug trafficking, gang violence, and human trafficking. We have a very great success rate, and obviously the outcome will be a reduction in violent crimes and deaths.
So let me ask you, LP, let me just stay with you for a second. We see that some of these local mayors and governors don't want the support of the federal law enforcement officers coming into their community. Tell me why that would be. I'm trying to understand what their rationale might be of saying, we don't want additional police. Can you try and clarify what they might be thinking?
I try to wrap myself around that one, and just talking to residents of Stratford County, they ask me the same thing. Like, we're worried about law enforcement. Why are these, Democratic mayors and Democratic officials standing up for these anarchists and rioters? I honestly don't have an answer for it. I can't imagine what's going through their mind, because the basic being of government is to protect safety, protect the lives of the communities. And why you don't want more resources to do that is beyond me. I don't understand why.
Well, I don't either. And so look, let me talk about Operation Legend, which was named in honor of a 4-year-old boy who was fatally shot in Kansas City. I'm going to just ask you guys to watch this clip with me of the boy's mother as she talks about the tragic loss of her son, and then I'm going to come to you, Chief, for a response. Roll the tape.
My one and only child, who fought through open heart surgery at 4 months, is gone due to senseless gun violence. Children are supposed to be our future, and our 4-year-old son didn't make it to kindergarten. I stand here today as a mother fighting against violence for my son, Legend Taliaferro. My family and I support Operation Legend, and we strongly want our community and everyone else behind us.
Chief Poirier, Chief, it is a unbelievably heartbreaking story when children are being killed, but we don't have the resources to go and track down the people that did it. We see it all too often in Chicago. My question to you, Chief, is why have so many Democratic leaders in major American cities failed to take action for decades, allowing, unfortunately, these sorts of tragedies to occur on a regular basis?
Yeah, my heart really goes out to that woman and to all the victims of violent crime. I don't have a solid answer as to why they failed to take action. I don't get it. I haven't been able to wrap my head around it, and I've been asking myself that same question. And hopefully there'll be change in a very near future so that we can address these situations and we don't have these tragedies.
Hey, Lieutenant Callahan, let me ask you, are President Trump's bold actions helping to reverse this horrific trend? Have you seen any of that, any of the support that the president has given to try and change this horrific action?
Oh yes, like I mentioned before, I think that they rolled out the operation in Kansas City. They've made over 200 arrests, and again, that's cooperation of federal, local, and state authorities working together and using their resources in the most efficient way to reduce violent crime in that community.
You know, you guys serve on the very front lines to keep our residents here in New Hampshire safe, and we're so very fortunate that you do that. What I want to do is thank you both for all that you do. Thank your families for giving us the opportunity to have you protecting us on a regular basis. Let me ask both of you individually. Lieutenant, I'll start with you. You've been on the job a long time. You've seen a lot of changes. Knowing what you know today, would you go back and sign up all over again and spend your career in law enforcement?
You know, it's a tough question. I love it. I've been in it for 33 years, so I think I would, but it's certainly very difficult and profession now than it was when I started in 1987. And we are seeing, as the chief mentioned, we are seeing a reduction in qualified applicants, and we're seeing, qualified good officers, experienced officers leaving the force, and you just can't replace experience. So it's a very dangerous time. And that's why it's so important that President Trump is supporting the police and supporting these efforts to make these communities safer.
Chief Poirier, same question to you. Knowing what you know today, after all the things you've seen on the job, all of the changes that have occurred, and this senseless attack on men and women who put on the uniform and protect us every day, if you had to do it all over again, would you go back and sign up to be a peace officer?
Me personally, I would have. This was a calling. This was something I've always wanted to do since I was a child. It's been a great ride for me, but being a lot more educated about the profession now, I would certainly have to think about it, but I would definitely get back into it. It's just the fact that there are a lot of considerations for the new generation to jump in the game with us.
Lieutenant Callahan, there's been a lot of talk lately of defunding the police. Joe Biden uses the term reallocation of resources. You can call it whatever you want, but when you take a paycheck from somebody and you give it to somebody else, that's called defunding. Tell us what it would mean in the sheriff's department if we started to defund the sheriff's department and gave it to domestic terrorists, Antifa, that type of people. What does it mean for you guys?
I think it means in general, for law enforcement in general, I think you'll see law enforcement become like firefighters, desk jockeys. They're not going to be responding to crimes. They're going to be responding to crimes while they're occurring instead of preventing them. So you got community policing programs that'll be destroyed. You've got other crime prevention programs that are going to be destroyed. And, our roads are not going to be safe. In New Hampshire, we've made great strides in community policing and dealing with human trafficking, drug trafficking, and gang violence. All that'll go away and make the state of New Hampshire a more dangerous state.
Both of you, one more thing, both of you have a combined 60 plus years of law enforcement serving our communities. We hear these talks of how Antifa is just a peaceful group. When people call 911, the 3 digits that everyone in America knows, on the other end of that call, they're not asked what their race is, their age, their ethnicity, how much money they have, what their sexual orientation is. They know that you're going to respond, that your officers are going to respond every time. What happens if we continue to cut funding and police officers are no longer responding to 911 calls, which is what the Democrats are saying? They're saying send social workers to what I believe are the most dangerous calls officers respond to, which are the domestic violence calls.
Right.
They traditionally send at least 2 officers to every domestic call. Chief, let me start with you. What happens if police officers stop responding to domestic violence calls?
People are going to be hurt and people are going to get killed if police officers stop responding to these calls. Absolutely, without a doubt. You're not going to have a social worker responding to a domestic call. They're already calling us now because they don't have enough help or they can't get out to do a welfare check. They want us to do it. People want to see help and they want to see a uniform respond to their home when they're in desired need.
Lieutenant, what happens if, in your opinion, if police officers stop responding to domestic violence calls? I know the sheriff's department helps a lot of communities because you have a big territory. What happens?
Exactly what the chief said is you're going to have an increase in violence to families. I mean, obviously, domestic violence situations are emotionally tense and rapidly evolving. So you need police officers to respond. You can't have social workers to respond to those situations.
You guys are exactly right. And look, in New Hampshire, we have been teaching what we call the force continuum at the academy for at least the 15 years I've been associated with it. It is officer presence and escalating all the way through, hopefully never used, but if necessary, deadly force. And we have seen sometimes the need to escalate very quickly. And we touched on it, Chief, you touched on it, Lieutenant, you touched on it. 99.99% of the officers who wear the badge are great people. And we have to root out that small percentage that make it through and do things that are terrible. We don't have those problems by and large in New Hampshire. So, can you just touch on very quickly the training that you're still required to do on a yearly basis to keep your credentials? Lieutenant, let me start with you. Tell the audience some of the training, even as an officer of 30 plus years on the force, what you're required to do to maintain your training.
At least mandatory 8 hours of classroom training and on use of force, and several hours more in firearms training, racial bias training, and critical incident response training.
Chief?
Yeah, the same. We have to do a minimum of 8-hour training per year. But, these officers are well trained. They go through a 16-week military type academy where they learn ethics, constitutional law, defensive tactics, all the tools that they need to make themselves an officer ready for the street. Additionally, we have a field training program, which is 12 weeks long, and we make sure that they are well trained, professional, and really ready to protect themselves and our community.
And that's a really important point. When our men and women get out of the academy, they still have to go through FTO, right? They still have to spend their time training with another officer, ride-alongs, understanding what the situation is. And we're taking our senior officers and we're training those junior officers in real-world settings. Isn't that true, Chief?
That's true. We do a lot of scenario-based settings. So, they're trained and they're ready to go. I think in this state, we do a very good job with training, and we hire people and we consider ourselves professionals. We are absolutely, I would say, some of the best police officers in the country, and we do a great job at hiring. And that's where it all starts, in the hiring process. And all the agencies, and it's a standard. We have a regular standard with hiring policies. We give lie detector polygraph exams, psychological exams, physical fitness exams. And as you know, police officers now are required to meet that minimum physical fitness standard every 3 years. So I think New Hampshire's done a very fine job with law enforcement.
Well, look, right now, we need everyone's help to defend our great country against Joe Biden and the radical Democrats. The stakes couldn't be any higher. We need the patriots at home watching right now to join our fight to reelect Donald J. Trump as our president of the United States. So here's how you can get involved. Download the new groundbreaking Trump 2020 app available at Apple or Android. To stay in contact with us, please text Trump to 88022. Trump to 88022. If you or your friends or your family or neighbors want to get involved to fight to help reelect President Trump, please visit armyfortrump.com to sign up. let me just bring it back to you. First, I'll start with you, Chief. Any final thoughts you want to leave with the American people about law enforcement and what's going on in our country right now?
I want the people to know that, we are professionals. We're here to protect and serve the community. 99.9% of us are good people. We're here to do the right thing. And we're going to continue to do the right thing. And with Trump backing us, we're going to be even stronger than ever. And we will protect and serve. And that's what we're here for.
Lieutenant Callahan, the final thoughts from you.
Yes, I agree with you, Chief. 99.9 of all officers are good. Now let's talk about the President Tough. He talks tough because he is tough on crime. He's a law and order president. But he's attacked this issue on both sides. I mean, nobody wants to bring up the fact, several months ago that he passed that Criminal Reform Act, where it's gotten people that were in prison for a long period of time lesser sentences because they were in jail for nonviolent offenses. So he's attacked it from both ends here.
You gentlemen are exactly right. And I want to thank you, Lieutenant Callahan of the Stratford County Sheriff's Office, Chief Poirier of the Barnstead Police Department. Thank you for joining us tonight. A special thanks goes out to our audience who is watching. Thank you, gentlemen, for all that you do to protect us, for serving on that thin blue line. Let me tell you unequivocally, you have the support of me, my family, the president, the entire Trump train, and hundreds of millions of people across this country who are safer because you get up every day and go put your lives on the line for us. So thank you, gentlemen, both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Corey.